Welcome to a short preview of this Screencasts Online video tutorial.
In this episode, we're taking a look at OmniFocus 3 for the Mac. We're going to walk you through the basic features and explain how the different built-in perspectives work, explain the different types of projects that are available inside of OmniFocus, show you how the new forecast view works, and much more. This is the first in a multi-part series on OmniFocus 3 for Mac. And in this first episode, we're going to focus on the basic features first. In the next episode, we'll look at some more of the advanced features of the Pro version and show you several examples of custom perspectives you can use if you really want to make OmniFocus dance. The goal of this episode is to get you familiar with the different parts of the OmniFocus interface so you understand how everything works. Let's get started. Before you begin using OmniFocus 3 for Mac, you have to download and install it. There are two different ways that you can purchase OmniFocus 3 for Mac, through the developer's website and through the Mac App Store. With OmniFocus 3 in particular, it doesn't really matter which option you choose because the Omni Group has worked with Apple to allow upgrade pricing if you've purchased a previous version of OmniFocus, even if you do get the App Store version. But as a general rule, I prefer to buy the applications from the developers themselves. So if you go to the OmniFocus 3 webpage, you can click the Buy button to buy, download, and install OmniFocus 3 for Mac. There are two different versions available. There's the normal OmniFocus 3 license, which is $39.99 US. And then there's the OmniFocus 3 Pro license, which is $79.99 US. Most of the features we're going to be looking at in this first screencast, you can use with the standard license. Where you need a Pro license, I'll try to call those out as we go. The Pro version offers some additional features like custom perspectives, a custom sidebar, and AppleScript support, and we'll get into some of that stuff in the second screencast in this series. I personally would recommend the Pro version if you really want to get into some of the powerful features that OmniFocus has, but for now, the standard version is fine. You can also upgrade an existing license for a 50% discount. So if you wanted to upgrade an OmniFocus 2 license to an OmniFocus 3 license, you can put in your license owner name and the license key to upgrade for $19.99 US. Or if you wanted to upgrade an OmniFocus 2 Pro license to an OmniFocus 3 Pro license, you can enter your credential information for an upgrade of $39.99 US. And if you prefer to buy directly from the Mac App Store, there's a download link on this page as well. I already have OmniFocus 3 installed, so let's close Safari and open OmniFocus by invoking Spotlight and typing OmniFocus. Now, the first time you open OmniFocus 3 for Mac, there's going to be a short wizard which is going to help you get things set up. This is a fresh download, and I don't have my license key applied yet, but that's okay because the Omni Group is going to give you a 14-day free trial of the Pro version so you can decide which one is right for you. So the first thing we can do is we can either unlock this by using a license code if we have one, or we can click Get Started. Let's click Get Started, and the next thing we're going to have to do is decide whether to keep our data in the cloud or to keep our data on this Mac only.
That's just a quick preview of one of this week's Apple-related tutorials from Screencasts Online. Screencasts Online is your premium source of Apple-related video tutorials. All of our members get access to brand new, up-to-date tutorials each week, as well as unlimited access to our entire video archive full of Mac and iOS-related tutorials. You can stream and download all of our videos on your Mac, iPad and iPhone, and even your Apple TV using the members-only Screencasts Online Apple TV app. Membership also includes a complimentary subscription to the digital Screencasts Online monthly magazine, published each month and packed with videos, articles, reviews, as well as hints and tips covering all aspects of the Mac, iPad, iPhone, and all of the other fantastic Apple products. So, if you're ready to start getting the most out of your Apple devices, visit screencastsonline.com today and become a Screencasts Online member.